everyone, and welcome to another Top 5 Records video. Right now, a complete unknown, the Bob Dylan biopic, is running in theaters. And I hear a lot of people talk about Bob Dylan, a lot of people who usually did not talk about Bob Dylan. So I thought it might be a right moment to give a little bit more attention to Bob Dylan and his best records. So that got me wondering, what do I think are his best 10 albums? I did a top 5 earlier, but his catalog is so big, a top 10 is even just the tip of the iceberg. So, without further ado, I'm going to kick it off with at number 10, The Times They Are Changing. Now, this record truly came to life for me about 5 or 6 years ago when I was in a record shop in Nordhorn in Germany, and I found what I believe is a first American pressing. It has a beautiful sleeve with the lyrics in here, and I always thought this record was okay, but now with this American pressing, I'm starting to enjoy it even more because this does show a moment in time for Bob Dylan that is particularly interesting and might be even more interesting after seeing A Complete Unknown. This is perhaps his most folk like record. I hear people saying, yeah, but might that be the Freewheelin? I have the idea that The Times They Are Changing tells more of a American history story. Also the cover, I mean, the look here, he looks very thin. He looks like a well-traveled man, a troubadour who is gonna tell you about the world and also the state of the world, because the title track, The Times They Are Changing, honestly, that's the best track of the album. But there are a lot of great deep cuts for the rest of it. So many great songs. Perhaps even one of his darker albums. At number 10, The Times They Are Changing. At number 9, this was quite something when it came out. This was during COVID time. This is Rough and Rowdy Ways. And I remember the moment it got announced, we were all looking forward to it. And I didn't understand why, really. I felt it, but I didn't really understand why, because basically, Dylan has most of the time been productive. But there was something special. There was a special sound going around. Dylan did a very rare, very interesting interview. And honestly, with this 2020 album, he nailed it. There are so many spectacularly good tracks on here. My favorite actually is A Murder Most Foul. You can see on the backside of the record what he's talking about. But also other songs like Goodbye Jimmy Reed, I Contain Multitudes. It's a beautiful song. Somehow, it's as if Dylan really found the right moment in time, the right tone. He's singing about the now and with an understanding of the past that is so beautiful, so rare actually. This one, Rough and Rowdy Ways. It's interesting that I don't have that quite often, that when a record comes out, it's sort of like it's deciding for the tone of evenings, friends coming along, the record that people talk about. Last year we had it with Beyonce. In 2020, it was this one, Rough and Rowdy Ways. At number 9. At number 8, Oh Mercy. This was a rare moment in which Dylan found himself again after a not so good 80s. Of course, there are fans around here who must enjoy the 80s of Bob Dylan, but I'm I'm not a big fan. I gave this record a second listen after reading his book, his biography, in which he talks about the recording process and the atmosphere that seeped through, that went through the recording, and how he also in the production style really found a new side of himself. This record has mystery, it has mysticism, and it showed back then. Well, it's the year of my birth, but looking at it from the perspective of the biography, it showed the world that there was more to Bob Dylan than people thought that he was doing. Is that an exaggeration? I want to say a Lazarus. He did a Lazarus. Well, it's good. Oh Mercy's really, really good. At number 8. At number 7, Nashville Skyline. At the late 60s, at the end of the 60s, Bob Dylan wanted to distance himself from the part that the world has given him. You can somewhat see that element already in A Complete Unknown, that he doesn't enjoy the idea of other people deciding who he was. And after recording Blonde on Blonde, he had a motorcycle accident. He removed himself from the New York City center, and he actually fell in love with country, with the roots of American country. And in 1969, while the world was going through, well, times like these actually, um, people were thinking that Bob Dylan might give the answer. And he did not. He did not give the answer. He was not the critic people expected him to be. But nevertheless, he remained the poet. In what way? In a more relaxed way, in a laid backness, in an understanding of American culture, with so much love in the tone and in the music, that I really think this is a stunning, stunning album. Opening with Girl from the North Country, in which he does a duet with Johnny Cash. Again, if you've seen A Complete Unknown, you see that the flirt between Johnny Cash and Bob Dylan started there in the early 60s, and Johnny Cash recognized the greatness in Dylan, and Dylan obviously already knew about the greatness in Johnny Cash. Later on in the 60s, Bob Dylan went to Nashville, and Johnny Cash actually hoped that Bob Dylan would move in his backyard, in his garden backyard. He did not, but Dylan did get close. There was a moment in which a couple of years ago, I wanted to make a documentary about Mickey Newbury, the country singer, songwriter, and composer. And his wife, late wife, told me that these guys were constantly hanging around together, Newbury, Dylan, Cash. And there were moments that on a Sunday afternoon, Johnny Cash's wife would call Susan Newbury very angry, like, "Is Johnny Cash at your house?" "No, I haven't seen any Johnny Cash." "Well, where the hell is that man?" I mean, they were a bunch of boys in the late 60s, early 70s, just hanging around drinking beers, and their wives had to call each other to find out where they were. That vibe, Chris Christopherson was there. That vibe, that laid backness, but with a deeply good understanding of great songwriting, with beautiful lyrics, not too deep, but not superficial either. And that is core of Nashville Skyline. Beautiful, beautiful album. At number 7. Yes, we're going to move to number 6. Bob Dylan's Desire. Now, this is 1975. I thought actually 76, but my cover says 75. How can that be? That would be quite something if he actually recorded 2 of these great albums in 1975. No. Blood on the Tracks was recorded in 74, released 75. This says credit on 75, but I memorized it as being a 76 release. Well, if this label says 75, I'm not going to contradict this. This is a Dutch pressing. I'm not looking for a different one because I read online that this is supposedly the best pressing of this record. I got it in a very good condition, so I'm not trading it in. Though I would love to listen to a First American, nevertheless. This one has some great, great songs like Sarah. Sarah's brilliant, and Hurricane, one of his iconic tracks. Dylan definitely refound himself in the 70s. I'm gonna say that a lot. Refound himself. He somehow keeps changing, and Dylan has periods that might not seem interesting at first, then seem interesting later on, and then again he goes straight back to the main interest. That is very interesting about Bob Dylan. And this mid 70s period with Desire, such a beautiful, strong album. I love it. At number 6, now we're running into number in the top 5 territory. Very tough picks here, very tough picks. But at number 5, one of my most played Bob Dylan albums, Bringing It All Back Home. Now, while I was watching A Complete Unknown, I did not understand why everybody was so buzzing about the direction Dylan was taken before he went to release Highway 61 Revisited, because that flirt with blues rock and giving it a different vibe, that is already very heavy on Bringing It All Back Home. Later on in the film, I'm not giving any spoilers, but I can tell this. The Pete Seeger character does say, yeah, I already heard it on your last record. So I thought about the tension, the idea that Dylan was changing and people did not see him changing, or did not expect him to change in the Newport Folk Festival. I thought, yeah, but it's already present here, and why make such a fuss? I mean, Dylan found himself in folk. He never called himself a folk or a protest singer at all. He despised the idea of being put in a corner like that openly in interviews. And the essence of Dylan and the essence of good folk goes beyond the qualification of good folk, because Dylan here is still the same writer. He still has the same soul. His songs still have the same soul. It just gets a little bit bluesier. But I mean, Newport Folk Festival also featured a lot of blues artists, didn't they? I mean, we see in the film they feature a country artist like Johnny Cash. Why make a fuss about Dylan make a slight move? I do not understand why the film exaggerates that standpoint so much. Nevertheless, got to talk about Bring It All Back Home at number 5. Subterranean Homesick Blues. Brilliant song. Love that. She Belongs to Me. Gorgeous. Maggie's Farm. I ain't gonna take her. Work on Maggie's Farm no more. Love Minus Zero, No Limit. Banger after banger after banger. Bob Dylan's 115th Dream. Mr. Tambourine Man. Gates of Eden. Beautiful epic. It's Alright Ma, I'm Only Bleeding. Oh, I'm gonna play this one after I record this video. And then ending with It's All Over Now, Baby Blue, which immediately brings me to the beautiful documentary in which it's Don't Look Back by D.A. Pennebaker, in which D.A. Pennebaker follows Dylan during his United Kingdom tour. Now, as he's touring together with Donovan, and Donovan plays a song in a room, and he's trying to impress the room. And Donovan is a good musician. Donovan's also being made fun at in A Complete Unknown, but Donovan is really good. But to Donovan's song, Dylan responds with "It's All Over Now, Baby Blue," which is just so much sharper, so much wiser, so much more vile. But I like that. It is so much closer to reality than what Donovan was singing in that particular moment. He blew him away. That's all here. That is all here. Such an incredible album. Bringing It All Back Home. I'm actually doubting why did I put it on 5, but you know, Dylan. So many incredible records. Because what I got here is, yeah, also gorgeous, beautifully gorgeous. The Freewheelin. Well, this is obviously featured in A Complete Unknown. Obviously, this is one of those records again, banger after banger after banger. Blowing in the Wind, opening with Blowing in the Wind. I mean, opening with Blowing in the Wind. What a way to start your second album. Girl from the North Country. I love the melody here. Masters of War. I mean, I heard about Masters of War before I heard the Dylan version, because Roger Taylor, the drummer from Queen, he made some great solo records, and he did a beautiful cover of Masters of War. and I was just struck by the lyrics. I didn't know it was not an original Roger Taylor song. I could have known it was not an original Roger Taylor song because I love Roger Taylor, but writing lyrics is not his strongest point, and Masters of War has brilliant lyrics. Down the highway, Bob Dylan's blues. A hard rain's gonna fall. Don't think twice, it's all right. Honey, just allow me one more chance. I shall be free. Actually doubting, am I gonna listen to Bring It All Back Home or this one straight after the video? It's gonna be a tough competition because both are so good for my current mood. Don't think twice, it's all right. Man, what a record. I love it. At number 4, number 3, well, Highway 61 Revisited. This is what the fuss in the film is all about. And honestly, yeah, this record is a blow to your face. Opening with like a Rolling Stone. That blues rock vibe is there. But I can't really call it full on blues. I can't really call it full on blues rock. It is just still so much Bob Dylan in all his multitudes. Then Tombstone Blues. Love that one. It takes a lot to laugh. It takes a train to cry. From Buick 6. And then one of my favorite Dylan songs, Ballad of a Thin Man. Bang, dang, 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 bang. Now I want to play this one straight on after the video. I mean, the mystery on that track. Queen Jane approximately. Highway 61 Revisited, just like Thumbs Blues and Desolation Rule. Yeah, no, I'm gonna put this one on. Well, I was in doubt about the order of the records, but noticing that going through them, I keep want to change the record I want to play after this video. That's a good sign for me. I'm gonna listen to Highway 61 Revisited straight on after the video. The vibe, the quality, the production, the daring way of making this sound. I love it. At number 2, again, one of my most played Dylan records, Blood on the Tracks. For me, this was a later on find in life because I was always mainly focused on 60s Dylan. And I sort of like, I was sort of like that film. Oh, by the way, this one says 1974, so I might be wrong about it. This might be 1974 and then Desire 1975. Normally, I'm better with the years in which records are released. So I'm, but no, I was mainly focused when I first heard Dylan. I was 15 or 16 years old. I got a CD box, and it was all 60s Dylan. I was constantly listening to 60s Dylan, loved 60s Dylan, and I just imagined there was not much going on after it. I didn't find any other albums. Then, when about 10 years ago, a friend of mine and I got back into vinyl, he bought me a European pressing of this one. I'm not holding a European pressing, I'm holding a American pressing. And man, this is a breakup album. This is a breakup album, and Bob Dylan actually finding a softer side of himself. The sharpness, well, the unfriendly sharpness, which I, by the way, like, of the 60s is gone. He is still sharp on the emotions, sharp with words, but he does embrace romance, fragility, and a certain amount of warmth in that a lot better here. Opening with Tangled Up in Blue, then Simple Twist of Fate, You're a Big Girl Now, Idiot Wind, You're Gonna Make Me Lonesome When You Go. These are all, one after another, masterpieces. Then side 2, If You See Her Say Hello, Shelter from the Storm. I'm getting goosebumps just naming these tracks. It's incredible. At number 2, Blood on the Tracks. Number one, Blonde on Blonde. This is the record I spent the most time with. This is the one that I hold dearest. This is a double album. Dylan going to Nashville. Actually, Chris Christopherson, who passed away last summer, he got a job as a janitor in Nashville. And his first day on the job as a janitor was to clean out the cigarette butts from this session of Bob Dylan, Blonde on Blonde. Imagine, imagine that. I'm holding the mono version. If you're gonna, I think a lot of the viewers here may have listened to this already. If you're gonna get into this album, and please, please do, because this is two records of sheer joy. Please try to listen to the mono one. The mono mix was the version Dylan intended to listen to, and there is a distinct difference in tone. In the stereo, there is a lot more air and takes, and a lot of things are different, but the main thing is his voice sounds more nasal and airy, and so does his harmonica, which makes certain elements of lyrics and interpretation sound even cynical. When you listen to the mono one, it is far from that. The mono is full, warm, and sincere, and Blonde on Blonde is a powerful, experimental, lovely album that is sincere. Very sincere. So, at number one, Blonde on Blonde. And I'm curious, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Leave a comment below and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.